We hear it constantly. Like, you literally can't open a browser or scroll through a feed without someone breathlessly announcing that artificial intelligence is about to trigger this explosive economic revolution.
Yeah, the hype cycle is definitely in overdrive right now.
Totally. And the narrative is always the exact same. Overnight, we're all going to wake up in some sci-fi utopia of infinite wealth, zero labor, and, robots just doing all the heavy lifting for us.
Right. There is this pervasive, almost gravitational assumption that just because a new technology feels like magic to use, the macroeconomic impact of it will also magically happen all at once.
That is exactly the feeling. But it turns out, if you really want to know if that's true, if you genuinely want to predict the future of AI, you actually have to look backward first.
You do, yeah.
You have to understand the exact mathematical mechanics of how past automation actually grew the economy. Okay, let's unpack this, because today our mission on this deep dive is to explore a brand new, incredibly detailed Stanford economic working paper from May 2026.
Oh, it's a fascinating piece of work.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's by Charles the Thirst Jones and Christopher Tonetti, and it basically sets out to answer one massive question for you, the listener. Is AI going to make us infinitely rich by the year 2060?
Which is a bold question, but it's a remarkable, deeply empirical piece of research. And to understand where we're going, we have to do some serious historical growth accounting.
Growth accounting. Okay. What does that mean in this context?
Well, it means we need to completely separate the science fiction of automation from the actual mathematical reality of how human labor and physical capital interact over decades.
Right.
It's about forcing ourselves to look past the shiny new robots, and focusing entirely on the underlying economic engine.
Okay, so let's start by dismantling a really common assumption, because the paper goes right for the throat on this one. I think most of us assume that the exact moment a company fires a human and brings in a machine to do their job, productivity just skyrockets.
Yeah, that's the standard assumption.
Like, you replace the human, you flip the switch on the robot, and boom, instant economic growth.
It makes intuitive sense, but the paper reveals a genuinely shocking mathematical reality. The actual switching effect, which is the direct contribution to total factor productivity growth at the exact moment a human is replaced by a machine, is zero.
Wait, zero?
Exactly zero.
Before we talk about a zero boost, define total factor productivity for me in plain English so we know, exactly what is staying at zero here.
Of course. So think of total factor productivity, or TFP, as the overarching efficiency of the economy.
Okay.
If labor is the baker and capital is the oven, TFP is the recipe. It's the magic dust that explains how we get more output without necessarily adding more ovens or more bakers. It's pure innovation.
I like that, the recipe.
Right. And what the math shows is that the exact moment you swap the human baker for a robotic baker, that innovation metric, that net productivity gain for the broader economy, is effectively zero.
That completely breaks my mental model. You're telling me that firing a guy and putting in a robot gives the economy zero immediate boost? How is that mathematically possible?
Well, it comes down to why a firm automates in the first place. You have to look at the incentives. A business doesn't just automate because a robot suddenly exists in a catalog.
Right, they have to pay for it.
Exactly. They automate when the cost of using that machine finally equals, or, slightly beats, the cost of human labor. At that exact margin, the literal point in time where the switch happens, the costs are essentially identical.
Because if the robot were vastly cheaper, they would have just done it 5 years earlier.
Precisely. So at the very moment of transition, you are just trading one cost for an identical cost.
Okay, let me test my understanding here with an analogy. It's like trading in an old, reliable commuter car for a high-tech, experimental sports car.
Okay, I'm with you.
But you wait to buy the sports car until the exact day the monthly payment is identical to what you were paying for the old car. So the day you drive it off the lot, your personal finances haven't changed at all. You have a zero immediate boost to your wallet.
That is a perfect analogy. The immediate financial picture is identical. The real engine of economic growth isn't the switch itself, it's what happens next.
Because the old commuter car-like human labor pretty much stays the exact same speed forever. But the sports car, the machine, gets magically faster every single year.
Yes. The core benefit of automation is the ability to shift production from slowly improving human labor to rapidly improving machines.
A compounding effect.
Right. Historically, if you look at the U.S. private business sector since 1950, machines, what economists call capital productivity, improved about 3.8% faster per yen than humans did.
Wow. 3.8% a year, compounding over decades. I mean, that adds up incredibly fast.
It does, and the reason for that gap is biological limit versus technological limit. Humans, at a baseline task level, essentially don't improve much at all over time.
What do you mean? Like, we don't get faster at doing basic things?
Exactly. A human in 2023 doesn't manually harvest grain or invert a mathematical matrix inherently faster than a human in 1950 without the aid of a machine.
Right? Our biology hasn't changed.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is that the researchers ran a counterfactual to prove this. They asked a hypothetical question. What if we had frozen the set of automated tasks back in 1950?
Okay.
Like, what if we never allowed machines to take over any new tasks, but let everything else grow at historical rates?
So if we froze the robots in 1950, does the economy just flatline for 70 years?
hmm
Do we just stay stuck in the Truman administration?
Worse than flatlining. All total factor productivity growth between 1950 and 2023 would have been completely wiped out.
Wait, wiped out?
According to the math, it would have actually been negative. The entirety of our modern economic growth came from migrating tasks over to that rapidly improving sports car.
That is staggering. So the switch is nothing, the compounding improvement after the switch is everything. But, that brings up a huge logistical hurdle for this paper. Well, if measuring the exact tasks automated over 75 years is the secret to this whole math problem, how on earth did the researchers actually measure something so vast? You're talking about looking at every job in every sector of the economy across 3/4 of a century.
It's a huge undertaking. Usually a study like this would require an army of human research assistants. They'd spend years poring over historical manuals, factory logs, and industry reports, trying to subjectively guess how much of a specific task was automated in 1967 versus 1987.
Which sounds miserable.
But Jones and Tonetti didn't do that.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
They used state-of-the-art large language models. Specifically, they used OpenAI's GPT 5.5 and Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they set up API queries and essentially had the AIs do the heavy historical lifting.
I just love the irony of this so much. We are literally using frontier AI models to evaluate past automation so that we can predict the economic impact of frontier AI models.
It is very meta.
It's like the technology's interviewing itself about its own grandparents. But I mean, how do we actually trust that data? How do we trust GPT 5.5 to accurately know the automation rate of a 1970s textile mill without just, hallucinating a random number?
That is the critical question, and it's why their methodology is so rigorous. They didn't just ask the AI a broad, open-ended question. They designed highly specific prompts.
Feeding it actual source material.
Exactly. Feeding the AI detailed descriptions from the Department of Labor's historical occupational handbooks, they broke the economy down into 100 discrete task categories per sector.
100 categories. That is granular.
Very. Then, they asked the models to evaluate the percentage of automation for each specific task over the decades based on that textual evidence. And to prevent hallucinations, they ran the exact same queries dozens of times across both models.
Oh, so they checked its work against itself.
Right. They adjusted the temperature, the AI's creativity setting to 0, and averaged out the results to create a solid consensus. The data they extracted is incredibly granular.
I'm trying to picture what a microtask actually looks like on a random Tuesday in a normal business. What did the AI actually find?
Well, let's look at agriculture. By 2023, the specific microtask of thresh harvested grain was determined to be 99.3% automated.
Makes sense. Combines and tractors do all of that now.
Right. Contrast that with classroom instruction, which was only 20.7% automated, or grafting fruit trees, which was sitting at just 15.9% automated.
Grafting fruit trees. I guess a robot hand just doesn't have the delicate touch for splicing branches together quite yet.
Not yet, no.
But the agricultural examples in this paper really put it in perspective for me. The one that stuck out was the rotary milking parlor.
Oh, the dairy automation is a phenomenal example of the compounding effect.
It's basically a slow-moving carousel for cows. They step on, lasers scan their udders, robotic arms attach the milkers, and it can milk 400 to 800 cows per hour with almost zero human intervention.
It's an engineering marvel.
And the numbers. In the year 2000, there were roughly 800 of these milking robots in existence. By 2024, there were 100,000.
Which is a massive leap. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really shifts how you have to look at your own daily life.
How so?
Well, when you go to work, you probably think of yourself as having a job, a single unified role. But to an economist, you aren't a job. You are a collection of 100 microtasks.
Okay, I see.
Automation almost never replaces an entire job all at once. It chips away at specific tasks.
Right, so it doesn't replace the banker. It automates the interbank funds transfer. It doesn't replace the mechanic. It automates the cylinder bore machining.
Exactly. And that micro-task level is where the true engine of economic growth is hiding.
This brings us to a massive contradiction, though, because if machines have been taking over these microtasks for decades, and those machines are improving at nearly 4% a year, compounding, why hasn't our economic growth already exploded to infinity?
That is the big question.
Like, why isn't global GDP growing at 50% a year right now?
So this brings us to the core economic theory of the paper, and arguably the most important concept for understanding why AI won't make us billionaires overnight. It relies on a mathematical parameter where the elasticity of substitution is less than 1.
Let's pause right there and translate that out of economic speak. What exactly does it mean for the elasticity of substitution to be less than 1?
Think of it as a sliding scale of how easily you can swap things out. If the elasticity of substitution is exactly 1, it means you can perfectly substitute a machine for a human, 1-to-1, and get the exact same output. You just swap them infinitely.
Okay.
But when the number is less than 1, it means tasks in an economy are complements, not just substitutes. You can't just infinitely swap a machine for a human without losing something, because all the tasks in a production chain rely on each other to create the final product.
I see.
This mathematical reality creates a phenomenon known as weak links.
Weak links, like a chain.
Exactly. Total economic output is fundamentally constrained by the scarcest, weakest links in the production chain. And in our modern world, those weak links are the tasks still performed by slowly improving human labor.
I have an analogy for this that I think really hammers it home.
Let's hear it.
Think of the overall economy like a giant factory baking a cake. You have sequential tasks: producing flour, producing sugar, cracking the egg, and baking. Let's say you invent a magical AI robot that can suddenly produce infinite amounts of flour and infinite amounts of sugar at lightning speed.
A tremendous technological leap for the factory.
Huge leap. But you don't magically get infinite cakes coming out of the factory if you still rely on a slow human to manually crack the single egg required for each batch.
Right.
The human egg cracker is the weak link. No matter how much infinite flour the AI gives you, the total output of the entire factory is completely controlled by how fast that one human can crack eggs.
That is an incredibly accurate way to visualize it. Even if you automate software engineering, for example, to have literally infinite productivity, like a coding AI that can write 1 million perfect apps, a second software only makes up about 2% of global GDP.
Wow, only 2%.
Yes. So the total economic output is still constrained by the other 98% of the economy, the egg crackers.
So all the hype about AI coders changing the world overnight kind of ignores the fact that someone still has to physically mine the copper, build the server racks, negotiate the land rights for the data centers, or just, fix the plumbing in the office.
Exactly. This raises a very famous economic concept called the Baumol cost disease. As long as humans are required for even a tiny fraction of tasks, say 5% of the economy, those tasks act as a permanent anchor-like drag on growth.
What kind of tasks are we talking about?
We're talking about things like negotiating a delicate, highly contextual business deal, helping an elderly patient with dementia through the night, or running a noisy kindergarten classroom.
Right, things robots are terrible at.
Exactly. If those tasks remain stubbornly human, they are the bottlenecks that prevent a global economic explosion, no matter how smart the AI gets at everything else.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the actual future? If we take this historical math, the 3.8% compounding machines, the weak links, the micro tasks, and we apply it to tomorrow,
This is where things get really interesting.
what happens when AI isn't just making physical goods, but starts automating the actual production of new ideas? Because that's what frontier AI is doing right now in research and development.
This is where the paper runs what is called an endogenous growth model.
Let's define endogenous real quick before we look at the results.
Sure, endogenous simply means the growth is coming from inside the system itself rather than from some magical outside force. In this model, they simulate a future where AI automates the idea production function. The AI becomes the researcher. It's a flywheel effect. AI generates new ideas. Those ideas create better AI, which generates even more ideas.
The singularity flywheel. So they simulated this out using the math. What were the results?
They ran 2 different calibrations for this future. The first calibration assumes AI is just a continuation of historical patterns. based on that 3.8% capital growth rate we saw in the private business sector over the last 75 years.
And what happens in that scenario?
Well, in this scenario, growth does accelerate thanks to the AI flywheel, but it is incredibly slow. The economy only hits a 2.6% annual growth rate by the year 2075.
2.6%. That's barely higher than it is now. That's not a sci-fi utopia, that's just a slightly better Tuesday. Why is this so boring?
Because the weak links are still dictating the pace. But then they ran calibration too. They called this Moore's Law everywhere.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
They based this on the historical growth rate of the computer sector itself, which was a blistering 10.7%.
What does an economy growing at 10.7% even look like physically?
Imagine every sector of human life construction, medicine, agriculture, transportation advancing at the exact same breakneck speed that computer chips shrink.
That's hard to even wrap my head around.
It is. Every single year, the output of those industries gets 10% better, cheaper, and faster. If AI brings that level of hyper-fast automation to the entire economy, growth aggressively accelerates. According to their model, it reaches 13% a year by 2040, and it hits literal infinite income by roughly the year 2060.
Infinite income by 2060, that's what you're telling me.
Not quite. And here's the brutal reality of the math. Even in that explosive infinite wealth scenario, the explosion is delayed by decades. And the culprit, again, is the weak links.
The egg crackers strike again.
The egg crackers. The explosion to infinite wealth only actually happens when the very last human weak link is automated away. As long as humans are holding on to even a fraction of a percent of the necessary tasks, they violently drag the average down.
So even if the AI is running at light speed, if it's waiting on a human to approve a city zoning permit or manually wire a building, the whole system has to sit there and wait.
Yes. And because of that massive drag, the paths of these wildly different futures, the slow, boring 2.6% growth versus the literal explosion to infinite wealth, they actually look completely identical for the next 30 to 50 years.
Wait, really? The graph for the boring future and the graph for infinite wealth look the exact same for 30 years?
Exactly the same. Because the human bottlenecks obscure the underlying acceleration for decades. By 2050, your personal income might only be 4% higher than the current baseline trend because human weak links are still dragging the AI flywheel down. You won't feel the explosion until right before it goes vertical.
That's a massive reality check.
Yeah.
We're all waiting for the world to fundamentally change next Thursday, and the math is saying, settle in, you've got a 30-year wait in the lobby.
Pretty much, yeah.
But this leads me to the final section of the paper, and honestly, it gave me a bit of a chill. We just learned that the benefits of AI will arrive slowly because of weak links holding the economy back. But what about the dangers? Do the risks of AI also arrive slowly?
Unfortunately, no. The paper ends with a stark warning based on Michael Kramer's original O-ring theory of economic development.
O-ring theory. That instantly makes me think of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. But how does a 1980s space tragedy apply to AI economics?
Well, let's start with a standard business example first. Imagine a high-end luxury restaurant. You can have a world-class chef, the finest ingredients on earth, and $1 million dining room.
Okay, sounds great.
But if the waiter who serves the table is incredibly rude, the entire dining experience is ruined for the customer. The value of the meal drops to zero. That is the O-ring theory in economics. In highly complex, interdependent systems, a single failure in one component can destroy the value of the entire chain.
Right, and in the case of the space shuttle, one faulty O-ring seal caused the destruction of the entire ship.
Precisely. In our economic model, weak links make the economy highly fragile on the downside.
Let me bring back the baking factory analogy because it fits perfectly here.
Yeah.
You can have infinite flour and infinite sugar, but a slow human egg cracker means your cake production is slow. The benefits are delayed.
Yes, the upside is bottlenecked.
But the UT, if a malicious actor poisons that one single egg, the entire infinite batch of cakes is ruined instantly.
That is a terrifyingly precise way to put it. You only need to destroy one link in the chain to cause a collapse. An AI might not be able to build a house overnight or invent infinite clean energy by next week, but if it has the capability to hack the electricity grid, or manipulate the global banking system, or access biological research labs,
It can poison the egg.
yes, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it spells out the ultimate paradox of AI. Because of how human economies are structured, because we are a web of interdependent complementary tasks, the upside of transformative AI will likely take generations to truly make us infinitely wealthy.
Right, the weak links protect the status quo on the way up.
But those same weak links mean the downside risks, the catastrophic failures, are capable of arriving overnight.
To wrap this all up, the real superpower of automation isn't the day you plug the machine in and fire the human. The math says that day does nothing.
Nothing at all.
The superpower is the fact that you are replacing stagnant human improvement with compounding machine improvement over time. But despite all the hype, our economic destiny is entirely tethered to whatever tasks humans are still forced to do. Our own slowness is the anchor on the AI rocket ship.
Exactly. And to you listening, this is why you shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the daily barrage of hype promising an overnight AI utopia.
Yeah, take a breath.
The underlying math of the economy proves that human weak links will keep our daily reality grounded for decades to come. The future is coming, but it has to wait in line behind human bottlenecks just like the rest of us.
It really puts a different spin on things. I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Look at your own daily life, your own job, your own routines. What is the one task you do that an AI absolutely cannot do?
That's a great question.
Maybe it's negotiating a tricky emotional situation or physically fixing a broken pipe or just, cracking the egg. That task is your personal weak link. But here's the question. Is that weak link protecting your job security from being automated? Or is it the exact bottleneck holding back your own personal growth explosion? Think about it. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.